The Shadow Fire Minister has joined the Labour MP for Kensington, Emma Dent-Coad, in criticising the choice of the retired judge Sir Martin Moore-Bick to head the public inquiry into the Grenfell Tower fire. Yesterday, lawyers representing some of the victims called for Sir Martin to step down. Ms Dent-Coad said he was a technocrat who lacked credibility with local people. Well, a short while ago, our assistant political editor Norman Smith spoke to the Shadow Fire Minister Chris Williamson about why he's backing the calls for Sir Martin Moore-Bick to stand aside.
Well, there seem to be growing questions about the judge heading the inquiry into the Grenfell Tower tragedy. We've already heard from some lawyers representing some of the victims who think that he should stand down. Now the local Labour MP has also demanded he should go. Well, I'm joined by Labour's fire spokesman Chris Williamson. Do you think Sir Martin Moore-Bick should stand down?
Well, I do, because he doesn't have the confidence of the community, and they've been ignored for far too long. And if you look at his record, it does seem that the judgments that he's made on a number of high-profile cases, he's tended to fall on the side of the establishment, if you like. And in that case, I don't think that it's appropriate, therefore, in this highly sensitive judgment that he will be involved in this inquiry now, for him to carry on, given that background.
Isn't the danger, though, if he stood down, that would throw this whole inquiry into disarray when everyone wants it to get on and provide some answers?
Well, I want it to get on, but we want it to be a thorough inquiry. And I think the other issue is the terms of reference are far too narrow. And I think the survivors and the victims, I think, in terms of getting justice, want to see a proper inquiry that looks at a wider question rather than simply how the fire started and why it spread so quickly.
Sir Martin Moore-Bick, like many other judges, comes from an establishment background. If you want it to be a judge-led inquiry, isn't it almost inevitable that whoever is chosen will probably share a similar sort of background?
Well, they have a similar background, but I think the key thing is ensuring that they get the confidence of the community and looking at this individual's record in terms of some of the judgments that he's made, I don't think that fills people with confidence, and I'm sure there are plenty of other judges out there who would actually be more appropriate in this instance.
Is it his legal decisions, his legal history, because again other judges will no doubt have made similar potentially controversial decisions, or is it his attitude, the relationship that he has so far struck up or not struck up with the victims?
Well, I think for me, it's his judgments, to be honest. I mean, he's tended to fall down on the side of the establishment. He was overturned a high-profile case by the Supreme Court in relation to a single parent who'd been moved by Westminster Council out to Milton Keynes. And what he failed to do was look at what the alternatives were and simply accepted Westminster's view that they'd looked at all the appropriate alternatives and decided that it was the right thing to do to move somebody 50 miles away. And on that basis, it seems he's erred on the side of the establishment rather than erring on the side of ordinary people. And that's why we need somebody, I think, who is more in keeping, really, and has a greater sense of what is required here than Sir Martin Moore-Bick.
Who then do you think should be appointed, and how should they be appointed? Do you think, for example, that the residents should have in effect a veto over who is chosen?
Well, I think the residents should be consulted, in my view. I mean, clearly at the end of the day it's going to be a matter for the government, but I think it's important that the residents' views are taken into account. As I've already said, this community has been ignored for far too long, and given the sensitivities around this particular inquiry, it's vital that they have the confidence of the person leading it.
But how do you square your views with those of your leader, who is not calling for Sir Martin to stand down?
Well, I'm merely reflecting the views of the community, and the community have said that they are not happy, and they've called for Sir Martin Moore-Bick to step aside and for somebody more appropriate to be appointed. And I hope that the government will listen to the community who've already been treated very badly in this whole affair in relation to the temporary accommodation and the compensation that has been made available, and the very slow response that we've seen from both the local authority and indeed the government for that matter. And I think this really is just compounding people's feelings that they are being disregarded, their views are being disregarded.
Some residents after his appointment said they would be prepared to give him some time to see how things developed. Do you think he still does have time, or really the writing is on the wall and he should step down now?
Well, I think the difficulty for him is that the residents have already made it clear that they are not happy with him leading this inquiry.
But have they? I mean, we've heard from lawyers, we've heard from the local MP, but has there been a collective, overwhelming view by residents on this?
Well, my understanding is that local residents have taken that view, certainly. And the other issue for me as well is that the scope of this inquiry is far too narrow. We need to get to the bottom of, why decisions were made, not simply how the fire started and why it spread so quickly. We need to look at the background and why it was that the slipshod decisions were taken by the authorities and how we got into this situation which led to so many people tragically losing their lives.
Chris Williamson, thanks very much indeed. Downing Street at the moment not commenting on these calls for the judge to stand down, but clearly mounting pressure over his position.